We have a legacy here that's unique in American schools. It's the legacy that Bruce Goff created, and the people that worked with him, and the students that learned under him. Clearly, Goff was a genius as an architect, truly an American form of architecture that very few others, with the exception of Mr. Wright, have been able to accomplish.
I'm in front of the Ledbetter House in Norman, Oklahoma, 2 blocks west of the university campus. This is one of the premier designs by the master architect Bruce Goff, and it was built in 1948. Goff is regarded by most architects and architectural historians as being a very important figure in 20th century architecture. He's also important to Oklahoma because he was the director of the OU School of Architecture from 1947 to 1955. When Goff came to OU in 1947, he developed a school of architecture that was really unlike any other school of architecture in America. Goff set in motion a kind of freedom and a new kind of dynamic that was based upon the principles of organic architecture that was developed by Frank Lloyd Wright. Most of Goff's buildings don't look like Frank Lloyd Wright's. Goff did not want an identifiable style. He tried to approach each building from a very individual point of view. And one of the things that is important is the creation of this particular house. It was a very imaginative design, and Goff knew a great deal about construction. He had 25 years experience when he came to OU, and he knew a lot about materials and about construction assemblies. And so he could not only do an imaginative design, create a house that was unlike anything else that had ever been built, but he could build with great authority. And with the creation of this house, I think he really won the hearts and the minds of the students.
Well, I think that Bruce's feeling about Mr. Wright, that he was so strong an individual and architect that studying under him would, he'd have to more or less go Mr. Wright's way. And so he felt that he should stay kind of aloof. And really, I think that when it comes to creativity, that Bruce was far more for the individual than Mr. Wright. And how he came to live in the Price Tower, I think that was most ideal for Bruce. And after all, he'd been suggested to design the building in the first place, and brought Mr. Wright into it. I remember we were studying in one of the labs, and said there was mumbles out in the hallway that about a new professor was coming to the university and showing some fantastic slides. He would talk about the simplest things that as kids we thought about, like how the pattern of icicles on a roof, and yet he would relate that into the design of a building too. He was different, but that difference made something that was great, and wish we had known at the time we were working with him how great he was.
To me, Bruce Goff's mind was the most creative mind that I've ever been around and ever been stimulated by. And here was a man that took as much pride in his students that he produced, and he showed the excitement of the work that they were producing. And that was most rewarding and most uplifting to any student that ever was around him.
I wanted to work at the University of Oklahoma because I hoped to eventually become a student there. And so I went on out to the North Campus, which was a long way from the main campus, and walked up to that old naval barracks building 604. And I opened the door into a world that I did not know existed. And Mr. Goff had books spread out all over his desk. Finally, I said, well, you know, sir, I just don't know what architecture is. And he said, well, neither do a lot of other people. But let me show you what my students are doing. And he offered me the job, and I took it right then. And I've looked back over those years, and I think in a way, Mr. Goff had that special ability to install in his students a certain confidence or self-esteem. And he always stressed the importance and uniqueness and the self-value of the individual.
The Bruce Goff Chair was the first endowed chair that the college received. It was initial funds that Bruce Goff provided. Each year it pays for an impressive list of Bruce Goff chairs, which are practicing architects and people that are influential in the field that come and each spend a week with our students and show them what they're doing.
Bruce Goff was a very special person, created an atmosphere around him in his work that spawned creativity in others. This is a situation where people want to know about Goff, where he was doing his work, what his buildings were about, and what a school is up to that tries to capitalize on that.